Apple Notes is a fantastic note-taking app and writing tool, presuming you're already in the Apple ecosystem. But how can it help you? Hi there, my name is Brian Collins. Welcome to the Become a Writer Today channel. So I love testing and trialing all of the latest writing apps and software. Apple Notes perhaps isn't the most hyped or even the most sexy type of note-taking app out there, but it's pretty good if you use an iPhone, an iPad or a Mac. And in this video, I'm going to walk through how writers and note takers can get more from Apple Notes as part of their creative workflow. So let's dive in. And if you do enjoy this Apple Notes tutorial, then hit thumbs up. And if you want to get more guides like this to the latest writing software, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have questions about any of the tips that I'm about to show you, then please ask me in the comments section below this video. To get the most from Apple Notes, simply put all of your ideas, research, and anything you come across when you're watching a video or when you're listening to a podcast or reading a book straight into Apple Notes. Because the more information you have inside of Apple Notes, the more value you'll get from it. On the other hand, if you're searching all of your different note-taking apps for your latest ideas and research and so on, chances are you're going to miss something. So this is why it's particularly good if you have an iPhone, because chances are you can take notes pretty quickly with the iPhone, and if you're also using an Apple computer. Now the question is, what way should you organize your notes inside of Apple Notes? I use Apple Notes in several different ways, which I'll show you in this video. So perhaps the number one use case for me for Apple Notes is for taking short form notes. Because I have an iPhone, an iPad and a Mac, it's pretty easy for me to capture an idea. In fact, it only takes two thumb presses or button presses to get a note into Apple Notes on my iPhone. And I don't know any other note-taking app that's that fast if you're already using an iPhone. I also use Apple Notes for dictating notes to myself if I can't quickly access my phone, for example, driving. So I can say, hey Siri, take a note, and it'll automatically get added into Apple Notes. And I'll show you how that works in a few moments. I also use Apple Notes for syncing notes from one device to the next. This could include an article that I want to read, a URL, or perhaps something that someone sent me over email that I quickly want to reference. I also use Apple Notes for taking notes on the go because it's always in my phone and it's free. And I use it for capturing ideas, for example, for taking photographs, for scanning documents and books and getting them into Apple Notes and then reviewing them later on. And I also use it for creating simple checklists and to-do lists that I want to work through, but which aren't too complex or extensive. In other words, when I have a few moments before an appointment or at the shop or when I'm in a queue, I can jot down a to-do list into Apple Notes and then reference it later. As great as Apple Notes is, there are several things I do not use it for. I do not use it for long form writing, that is writing blog posts and articles. That's because I prefer writing with Markdown, which is faster and built for web publishing. And elsewhere in the channel, I explain how you can use Markdown to write for the web. I also don't use Apple Notes as a type of Zettelkasten, although it is possible to do that. If you're not familiar, a Zettelkasten is basically a German word which describes having a slip box or a sequence of notes about specific topics. I also don't use Apple Notes for interlinking my notes, which is a key principle behind the Zettelkasten method. That's because it's a little bit cumbersome and slow to do versus other note-taking apps. And I also don't use Apple Notes for collaborating with others, although that is possible. And that's simply because it's a little bit slower to do this with Apple Notes versus other note-taking apps. As mentioned previously, I don't write my articles directly in Apple Notes and then copy and paste them into WordPress or Substack or Twitter. Again, this is possible, but I just like to capture the bare bones of an idea here before transferring to a different writing app, like for example, Ulysses, which I've reviewed on this channel. I don't use it extensively for project planning. At some point I will migrate my notes to a to-do list or project management app like Trello. And I also don't use it for extensive outlining. So while I may create a simple outline like this one, if I want to manipulate the outline or perhaps it's longer or it's for a book chapter, I will use a dedicated outlining app like Dynalist or Workflowy. Both apps I have profiled and reviewed on the channel and explained how writers can use them. Although folders are quite a good way of organizing your notes, they're also quite a traditional way of filing and categorizing notes. So why not use smart folders? To use it, simply click on the new folder icon and then you're going to give your folder a name. My blog post ideas. And in this case, click on Make into Smart Folder. Now you can click on a number of different criteria which will determine what notes get automatically added to this smart folder. So you can sort by date created. So you can have a smart folder of notes that you created over the past week, notes that you've shared with others, notes with checklists, for example, if you're using Apple Notes for to-do lists, attachments, pin notes, lock notes, and so on. So in this case, what I'm looking for is tags, and I'm going to give it the tag ideas and select, and now click OK. Now when I add a note into Apple Notes, it's like my first blog post idea, and then I use the hashtag ideas, it'll automatically get added to this relevant Smart Note folder. So this way you could build up a library of blog post ideas or other items that you want to work on into your Smart Notes folder. You could do this for a specific project, and then when you're finished with the project in question, you could simply delete the Smart folder. Similarly, you can access all of the tags that you may have created by clicking on the tags icon on the left-hand side menu bar, and you can also search for the relevant tags in question. So by clicking ideas, it's surfacing up the relevant note as well. As useful as Smart folders are, I still use a dedicated folder structure for template note types that I want to use in different notes. So here are some of the templates that I have inside of Apple Notes. So I have a past versus present template that I got from a course that I took, the Ship 30 for 30 course. And it basically describes how to write a past versus present article that shows what you learned and how it changed you in some way. It's basically a viral template for social media. So it's just a few bullet points that I can use if I wanted to write a Twitter thread. I also have a note template for notes that I will add to my Zettelkasten. Elsewhere in the Become a Writer Today channel, I go into detail about what the Zettelkasten is. I have a template about lessons I learned about a specific topic. Again, this is a kind of a fill in the blanks template that I could use. I also have a template that I'm using for writing articles related to NFTs for another project that I'm working on. And again, this helps me write these articles much faster. And I also have a weekly review template. So once a week, I review all of the sections on this weekly review note and populate it with various answers for things that I'm working on in my business and part of my writing routine. And I even have a YouTube video template as well that I would populate when I'm outlining videos like this one. Now in another note-taking tool, I have lots more templates that I'm migrating slowly into Apple Notes. However, I do find it helpful to have my templates in Apple Notes as well, because I can quickly copy and paste them into a new note when needs be. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to insert the templates directly, so you just have to copy and paste or duplicate the original template note. So that is one of the restrictions of Apple Notes. When you're taking a note inside of Apple Notes, there are a few key features worth knowing about. So firstly, it's rich text, so you can't use anything like Markdown for Apple Notes. So whether or not you care about Markdown depends on how you're using your note. Now that said, you can quickly learn the keyboard shortcuts. So by pressing Command-Shift-T, I can create a title note. By pressing Command-Shift-J, I can create a subheading. Command-B is bold, Command-I is italics, and so on. And if you want at any time, you can of course access all of the shortcuts by clicking on the top menu bar or by simply searching for the shortcut that you want to apply. Similarly, you can use these icons here at the top of your note. So I can change the formatting of any of these notes to title, heading, subheading, body, monospaced, and to bullet point lists. I particularly like the checklist that Apple Notes has. So item 1, item 2, item 3. So if I'm on my phone and I wanted to jot out a series of items or to-do list items that I want to work on a given day, I can quickly do this on my iPhone and it'll sync across to the desktop, and then I can just tick these off one by one. Now, this doesn't mean Apple Notes is a fully fledged productivity tool. There are going to be some restrictions and constraints using a simple checklist like this, but it does get the job done if you don't want to worry too much about using other software. You can also add tables. Keyboard shortcuts are a little bit constrained with tables, so you can use your mouse to drag and drop the rows and columns. And then if you want to add an additional entry to your table, just click Add Column Before or Add Column After, and you can use the Tab key to navigate the table and then press Enter to go on to the next row. I've had an iPhone for years, so I have quite a big photo library on my phone and on the photo apps on my computer. So if I click on Photos, I can quickly access all of the photos in my iPhotos library, which is a real time saver, and I can just drag them into Apple Notes. So this is a photograph of a race that I took part in a few months ago. So I'm going to just delete this photograph for the sake of the video. You can also take a photograph with your personal phone. You don't even need to connect the phone to your computer. Just simply click Take Photo, and then I can take a photograph with my phone of anything I like. So I'm going to take a photograph of something that I have on my desk. And now it should automatically be added into the note in question. So I've photographed the Elgato Stream Deck, which is a tool I use to record videos like this one, and it's automatically being added. So this is another reason why I like Apple Notes. It does kind of streamline navigating from your phone to the computer and back again, and working with rich media, assuming of course you're in the Apple ecosystem. Another Apple Notes feature that I like is the ability to scan documents, and then you can scan the document in question for text. It's a real time saver if you're reading books, because you can get your notes from paperback books into Apple Notes. So again, you just simply click on the icon here and then click on scan document, and then you take a photograph with your iPhone of the document in question. So here's one that I scanned before this video. It's an extract from this book about storytelling, and it's a photograph of this particular note. And you can see the word, the gap, appears on the note in question. I can actually select this text and search for it inside of Apple Notes. So again, a real time saver if you're a prolific reader, specifically on paperback books. And of course, if you find yourself using a lot of photography and imagery in your notes, then simply click on View and you can go to Gallery, or you can also press the command shortcut Command 2 or the keyboard shortcut Command 2, and then you can view all your notes with the imagery within a gallery as well. Suffice to say, you can also search for the notes that you've scanned. So if I click on Notes with Scanned Documents, it'll pop up this particular note in question. Apple Notes also has an ability to add sketches that you can draw with your phone, or specifically with your iPad. So this, again, really handy if you happen to have an Apple stylus device. So in this case, I've just opened up Sketch with my iPhone. I'm just going to sketch something at random on my phone, and then I'll click Done, and you can see the sketch has automatically been added. So if you find yourself annotating or writing a lot on your iPad and you like using a stylus, again, a good way to get your notes directly into Apple Notes as well. Now, if you're taking sensitive information with Apple Notes, you can lock your notes from prying eyes. So there's two ways that you can handle this. So click on Lock Note, and then you can set your login password as the password for all of your locked notes. Or alternatively, you can set a separate password for specific locked notes inside of Apple Notes. Personally, I use my login password because my computer and phone are not in a location that anybody can easily access them. And I also have a photo ID set up with these Apple devices as well. So it'll be quite a job for somebody to get into my notes. But this is a way of, I suppose, securing your notes if this is something that you're concerned with. Apple Notes also has an attachments browser, so you can quickly see all of the photographs and attachments you have for specific notes, your scans, the location where you took the notes, websites that you may have quickly added, audio files, which I don't tend to add, and other PDF documents. Perhaps the reason why I find myself gravitating towards Apple Notes is because it's quick and easy to use on the iPhone. So I can simply swipe down and then press this icon here with the plus to add a note directly into Apple Notes. So in other words, that's 2 to 3 presses of a finger, which is pretty fast. And as I'll show you in a few moments, I can also use Siri to quickly dictate notes to myself. On my mobile, I can also quickly add photographs by pressing the camera icon, and I can scan documents and so on. Or I can add drawings, and I can also quickly create checklists on my phone. So if you value fast capture or quick capture, Apple Notes is quite good with this on your mobile. It's also quite good for organizing the structure of your notes. So here are some of the notes that I've pinned to the top of my Apple Notes library. And I can basically swipe on any particular note, and then I can share it. I can put it into a folder or trash it. And if I swipe in the other direction, I can pin it to the top of my pinned notes. And of course, if I press on this icon here, I can navigate towards all of my shared notes, all of my notes in iCloud, and all of my tags, and so on. Perhaps one of my favorite features is the ability to use Siri to take voice notes quickly and easily. So if I'm out for a walk or a run and I suddenly think of something that I want to write down, instead of pulling out my phone and typing in the password and tapping in a few different words, I could simply say, "Hey Siri, take a sample note." Now Siri will just take a moment to add this into Apple Notes, and you can see here it's added a sample note directly into Apple Notes. And of course I can articulate or dictate longer notes as well. Normally I just add 1 or 2 short words into Apple Notes, and later on I'll review these sample notes and expand them and flesh them out. You can also share your notes inside of Apple Notes. So just simply click on the share icon, and then you're going to click on collaborate or send copy. So in this case I'm going to pick collaborate, and then you're going to pick what settings you'd like. So if you pick only invited people, it'll have to be sent over email. So in this case I'm just going to click anyone with the link, and I'm going to click view only access. And now I'm going to click copy link, and I'm going to bring over my browser. Now Apple Notes will just take a moment to prepare the note that I can share. So if I paste this into my browser, I should be able to access the specific note in question. And then the recipient can download this or add it to their iCloud drive. It can be a little bit finicky because you got to make sure you go through all of these different steps. But it works a little bit similar to sharing notes inside of Google Drive. At any time, you can click on File, Manage Shared Notes, and then you can cancel or stop sharing too. I use the Apple Notes Quick Capture feature quite a lot. Works a little bit similarly to a web clipper. So let's say you're surfing the web or researching an article or a blog post and you come across an interesting news story, like this one on the Irish national newspaper, the Irish Times, about property prices falling for the first time. And you want to capture the URL to use it later on as part of your research. Well, just copy it to your clipboard, move to the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and you can access a quick capture note. Then you can just paste in the note in question, and then you can navigate back to the tab in question and go about your day. And there's a similar quick capture functionality on the iPad and on your mobile device. Then later on, if you like, you can go to your quick notes and review all of the quick notes that you've captured throughout the day and figure out how you want to use them, file them, or even potentially delete them. It works exceptionally well on an iPad because you can quickly navigate from Safari to Apple Notes and back again. Sometimes I get asked about how to quickly grammar check notes and short form pieces of writing. Suffice to say, if you're using Apple Notes, then you get access to the grammar checker inbuilt in OS X. Alternatively, you could install Grammarly, which is a grammar checker I've profiled extensively on the channel. And this will work in the background and you can use it with any writing application. Now, I do have videos where I show you how to set up Grammarly. Once you've done it, just look for the floating Grammarly icon and then you can quickly make changes and fix spelling and grammar issues in your notes at a click. So I do use this quite a lot with my Apple Notes. If you have a large database of notes that you've taken with another note-taking app, you can import them with some restrictions and with some caveats. So it's pretty easy to do. Just go on to File, then you're going to go to Import to Notes and you're going to look for the database in question. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to show you some notes from my Zettelkasten. So it's a series of Markdown files. Now I have thousands of files, so I'm not going to import them all. I'm just going to import these 4 so you can see how it works. So I can click Preserve Folder Structure on Import. In this case, I don't have a folder structure, but I will copy this across if I do have one. If I click Import, then just accept this. And now it'll just take a second to import all of my notes. And it will create a folder called Imported Notes 1. I actually do have another folder called Imported Notes for notes that I looked at previously and which are then categorized and sorted. Now, the caveat here is that Apple Notes does not recognize Markdown. So that's what these asterisks and hashtags and brackets are. So I would need to clean up these notes and change them into rich text. That is one of the constraints of Apple Notes. Speaking of constraints, I'd love to see Apple Notes bringing in some sort of contextual internal linking that I could do by pressing a keyboard shortcut, like for example, 2 square brackets. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to interlink to your different notes inside of Apple Notes. There's a workaround, so you can click on the share button and click on copy link. And then you can go to a different note and then paste in the link. So it'll give you an iCloud link and then you can link back to the other note. So that's probably the easiest way to do it, but it's a little bit cumbersome to be pressing this button every single time. If you are going to go down that road, then of course you can just hyperlink some text. So I'm going to select the text, press Command K, and then paste in the link in question. So if you do want to use Apple Notes for some contextual internal linking, these are the steps that you will need to go through. In terms of getting your notes out of Apple Notes, your first option is of course just to copy and paste the note into another writing or note-taking app. Just bear in mind that you're copying rich text, so you may want to reformat this as plain text. For example, putting it into a text editor if you want to strip out the formatting. Alternatively, you can export it as a PDF. So compared to some of the other writing apps that are profiled on the channel, it's probably a little bit less suitable for writing online. Firstly, because of the rich text limitation. And secondly, because it's not going to support advanced features like Markdown. If you want something like that, I'd suggest using a writing app like Ulysses. So usually I'll take short form notes and outlines in Apple Notes, but I'll actually write the article in a different note-taking app, or writing app I should say, for that specific reason. I use Apple Notes pretty regularly. It excels at short form capture. I use it mostly because I always have my iPhone with me, and perhaps it's the fastest way for me to get ideas into my iPhone and then into a library. However, I wish Apple Notes would roll out some additional features and functionality for writers and creators. Contextual linking between notes, that would be fantastic. Support for Markdown, I'd love that. Support for publishing to the web, for example, WordPress and Medium. A lot of other note-taking and writing apps have this, but not Apple Notes. I can't really see Apple Notes rolling out some of those features or functionality anytime soon. However, I will continue to use Apple Notes to capture short-form notes, to scan photographs and documents, and also for capturing ideas on the go. But I'm not going to use Apple Notes for any long-form writing. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of how I'm using Apple Notes and what's good about it. If you do, or if you have questions, let me know in the comment section below. And of course, to get more tutorials like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.